we were, all of us, disturbed and shocked by the 15th film, by the movie Kashmir Files, that felt to us like a propaganda vulgar movie, inappropriate for an artistic competitive section of such a prestigious film festival. I feel totally comfortable to share openly these feelings here with you on stage, since the spirit that we felt in the festival can surely accept also a critical discussion, which is essential for art and for life. Thanks a lot.
And cutting across now, viewers, to some more breaking updates that we're picking up. A social media handle operated by Lashkar has now once again issued threats to Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir. And the terror group has released a list of 56 Kashmiri Pandit employees that are on their target as well. Terror group says that those provided accommodation under the PM rehabilitation package are on their target. So news which has raised some concerns as well, as far as the Kashmiri Pandit employees are also concerned, and who have stated that there is already a sense of fear among the employees, and such letter increases the fear
So, namaste everyone. Welcome to this episode of Yekjah Show. I am your host Akshay, Raina, and today I have with me two of the most prominent, in fact, Kashmiri Hindu voices. So, first we have Dr. Surinder Kaul with us. He is the co-founder of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora, GKPD. He's been a very vocal participant in raising and taking the movement of Kashmiri Pandits forward after the massacre that happened in 1990. Then I have with us Dr. Shafalica Bhan Kotwal as well. She's been a psychiatrist, and she is also a member of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora. She has also done a lot of things for Kashmiri Pandits, raising their voices, जो कि काफ़ी सालों तक लोगों को पता ही नहीं था. So welcome Surinder ji, welcome Shafalica ji. It's been
Namaskar, Akshay ji. Thank you for giving this opportunity, and we feel thrilled when youngsters of our community take lead, especially in the awareness about what happened with this community, which is important for Bharat and its civilization. Thanks. We're looking forward to this intense discussion.
Yes. So thank you, Akshay. Thank you for the very, very kind introduction. I'm just a volunteer, like yourself. So I wouldn't say I've done something great, but I think it's imperative that all of us together, become, because of what's happened to us, it's really important that we all volunteer at some level. For like you have a YouTube channel, it's great, that's your forte, and you can work as a community activist via your YouTube channel. And similarly with me, whatever skills I have, it's important I try and use it for the community. Now, one thing which you said in the introduction, that GKPD is an organization, we will come to that because we are not really an organization, but I will elaborate on that after a while.
Sure. So let's begin with how the Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora came into picture. Let's start with uncovering the layers on that.
So I will start with that. So like I said, Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora is not an organization. We are a civil society movement. Our selfless volunteers, they are drawn from all parts of the globe. Whether you are living in Jagati Township, you are living in California, or you're living in London, we have members from across the world. Now, the reason we came into existence is obviously, 33 years nearly back, we were all thrown out of our homeland. And there was a pogrom of genocide and ethnic cleansing unleashed against us. Now the pattern was that there was very little, from the government, there was very little support, and we were kind of left on our own. And it was with this idea in mind that a group of us, obviously led by Dr. Surinder Kaul and a few other people, came up with this idea that we need to all work together, because rather than working in pockets of activism, like I've been in UK for 22 years, and so I was doing my bit there, and someone else was doing in Jammu, and someone else was doing in Germany. So why not all of us put our efforts together and kind of work as a collective? So that was the aim. Is not, and the reason it's a civil society movement is because, as Akshay, you are aware, we have a lot of organizations, Kashmiri Pandit organizations, and most of them are doing really good work. But we didn't want to be held by hierarchy, where you have to look at a president or a vice president to kind of start something, and the rest of the team follows. What we wanted was a different model, and we are the only civil society movement of Kashmiri Pandits. I'm very proud of it. Now, how it has helped us is that we don't have to really get a board to approve any of our projects. So if I come up with the project and I kind of present it to the group, and everybody just works with me and supports me. And how it helps is that things happen at a very fast pace, within days. So we've had projects which have been initiated, and we've done them in like days, or at the most weeks, rather than months, because if you have to listen to a board who approves your projects, then it takes time. So we started, I must say, in 2008, yeah, when in the Madhya Pradesh Assembly, a unanimous resolution was passed in 2009 recognizing our ethnic cleansing and our exodus. And subsequently, that's how it started. And subsequently, as we grew from strength to strength, we held various teleconferences with people from across the world. The point of our point is to really engage with the policymakers. That's the crux of GKPD, is that because we have to engage with the government and the policymakers, and that's our background, what we are about. So with that in mind, we've had interactions with, for instance, Dilip Padgaonkar ji. We have had interactions with Manohar Joshi ji. We have interactions with Neil Kashkari ji, who was at that time, he was the Assistant Secretary of the US Treasury, Subramaniam Swami ji, and many others. And alongside, we have started working with various mainstream Kashmiri Pandit organizations. And in May 2018, we had this one voice. We submitted a memorandum to the Prime Minister of India. And the memorandum was one community, one voice. That was the crux of the memorandum. And it was signed by most of the Kashmiri Pandit organizations which were existing at that time. And it was, we had thousands, I think it was 16 or 20,000 people signed the memorandum, because we ran the petition online as well. So I think that was the largest number of people who have signed together one particular memorandum. So that was a big success. Then we presented it to embassies and consulates across the world as well, to the high commissioners. So, and that was 2018. Then in 2019, we have, like I said, we have to engage with the policymakers across the spectrum. So we had a conclave. It was an online conclave, which was called Right the Wrong in Kashmir, which was attended by panelists from Kashmir. Prominent among them were Abdul Rahim Rathar ji, former finance minister. There was Muzaffar Hassan Beg ji, and obviously, members of GKPD. And that was a great success because it was we tried to have some dialogue with people from Kashmir as well. So that's the kind of things we have done. Then obviously, then COVID is stuck. In between, we have had charity. We've had fundraising. People who have been martyred. We do a lot of fundraising, although that's not the main emphasis. But in the sidelines, we do a lot of fundraising for people who have been martyred in Kashmir, and to help their families. And then in 2020, COVID is stuck, and we kind of took it upon ourselves in a big way, that we have to support not just our community people, but India as a whole, because India as European and countries and US, we were all going through a very difficult time. But India, obviously being our country, we thought we have to do something for India. So we did a big concert. It had to be online, because it was COVID. So it was called Ek Saath. We got a lot of eminent, we had Lata Mangeshkar ji, we had Asha Bhosle ji, and a lot of prominent singers who participated in the concert, and it was a huge success. It was online, thousands, I would say lakhs of people watched it. The point of which was to raise funds, which went back to supporting charities in India. Yeah, alongside, as you might remember, Akshay, there was difficulties with oxygen, and
Yeah.
so we did fundraising. We sent concentrators to India. So whole of COVID, it was non-stop. We did health talks over weeks or months, and so that's a nonsense. And then around COVID time, the Kashmir Files started, which we will go in more detail. Dr. Surinder ji, he will talk about it in more detail. But 2018, 29, the whole talk about having a movie on our plight, what has happened to us, started. I will stop at that, and we can talk about the Kashmir Files. Because, yeah.
Sure. So, Surendarji, how did the initiative of Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora help in starting a plea from us, from our side, and then a movie came into picture? So, because Vivek Agnihotri ji once said that you are the architecture of that entire movie. So, how did that came into picture?
You see, first of all, thank you, Shafalica ji, for talking about GKPD and its objectives. In the trajectory of our struggle in exile of last 33 years, what we realized is that we used to use the nomenclature of ethnic cleansing, exodus. So these were the terms that were being used. Now, in 2017, once the GKPD became public, even though it has been performing its tasks from 2008, we interacted with some legal luminaries who specialize in human rights. And we had collected data of the number of people killed. So we had around 1,600 members who were brutally killed, with their dates and how they were killed. And once we had hands on this data, we interacted with legal luminaries in the globe who specialize in human rights. We thought that this is not only ethnic cleansing and exodus, it is much more, and it is basically a genocide. So we went through the research of United Nations Convention on Genocide and the interaction from our legal luminaries. They agreed that yes, this is a genocide. And then we started hammering that this is a genocide. So prior to, actually from year 2010, 2011, we have been trying to bring this in the form of a movie. And we had interacted with several Bollywood directors, and we had these things going on, but it became more intense after 2015. So we didn't have good luck on our side, because when we interacted with some of the directors, they brought it up that this is a very complex, sensitive issue. There are lots of risks involved in it. And basically, we will have to do some balancing act, which we were not ready. We had told them that we'll provide you the logistics and research, but we didn't want it to be sugar-coated. We wanted it to be the way these things has happened, because this was a massive tragedy in independent India, which doesn't go back to prior to 1947. It was pretty recent. So we didn't want to compromise on that. But in 2018, I had a chance meeting with Vivek Ranjan ji, who was in Houston. And there we had an interaction, even though he's a very savvy person who is up to date with the India and the happenings in India. But I realized that he doesn't have much information about what has happened in Kashmir. He did have information, but not to the extent. So I provided him all the information about what happened. And my emphasis was that there has been so many movies on Kashmir since 1990, which has whitewashed our genocide and ethnic cleansing. And we are very small in numbers. Maybe after 20 years, 30 years, we are at the verge of extinction. So we will become in the pages of the history. So we need to do something, and it's very urgent. And in fact, that discussion revolved on making a documentary where we said that we will do the fundraising, and if you'll be willing, because he was coming out as a very bold director, and he was unearthing some of the very sensitive and important things that has remained hidden from the Indian masses. So we just was very appreciative of his projects and his boldness. So he listened to me, but he did mention that everything that we want to depict has an image. And unfortunately, there is no image of Kashmiri Hindu genocide. And normally, the genocide picture is those people who have their skeletons out, who have their torn clothes on the. You don't have. You are well versed. You are so knowledgeable, and you are so highly networked and highly placed. So it will be very difficult. But then I had an argument with him, and I said, well, if a person like of your caliber will say like that, then there's a big intellectual bankruptcy on the part of the directors, and that they don't want to deal with it. But anyhow, we will do whatever we want to do, and let us see. So anyhow, so he listened to it, and after a month's time, he's calling me back, and he told me that, hey, we have done some little research. I am going to make a movie on this. I had a discussion with the family, and I am ready. We are ready to take up this whole project because this is an important event in the history of independent India, and it has to come on to the cellulite. And he asked me if Global Kashmiri Pandit Diaspora will provide all the logistic and research support to this project. So that was a moment, basically, of in this tragedy. I must say it was sort of reassuring, and I promised him that we will do everything, whatever it will take. And that was the seed that was sown in 2018 after the interaction with Vivek. Now, then it becomes very, very interesting. Now, okay, he has agreed with it, but prior to that, we have been interacting with the members who became victim of this genocide, who lost their brothers, sisters, mothers, got raped. All these human stories, we had direct access, and we were interacting with them. So that came handy because it took us several years, because anybody who became victim of genocide, first-hand genocide, they were not prepared to speak up because they didn't trust the system. And they were scared that maybe they will become, it was very scary for them to open their mouths. But we pleaded that, it's very important for you to speak up. And because we have to create this awareness, you have become victims, and it's you who have to speak about it. And that's how we generated this whole thing. Prior to the release of Kashmir Files, we were coming up with this lot of meetings, Zoom meetings. We were hammering about the genocide ever since we came to realize this is a genocide. And these members started opening up how their father was killed, what was the story, and it was covered immensely by the certain section of the media, Indian media. And then we had outreach with all these members. So it became handy. It came handy when Vivek started this project. So in 2019, actually started the whole conceptualized how we are going to do these things. And Vivek ji and Pallavi ji, they send out teams to have interviews with the first-hand victims of this genocide, and long format interviews wherever they are, whether they are in Jagati, Jammu, Jaipur, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, And not only that, then he said that I will reach out to every member all over the globe. So he started doing these long format interviews. So he came to US and he visited at least 20 cities here. And one of the important thing was, so he came with a camera team, Palabiji was accompanying, and they went to every individual's home to record this tragic history in their comfort zone. So he drove 100 miles to a person's home to record this whole interview. So 2019 just spent on the research, and basically we were very successful in having around 750 testimonials from the first-hand victims of this mayhem. And then eventually he did the script writing and all that stuff. Then came the challenge of COVID. So everything was prepared. They had done a recce of the shooting and everything was ready. So the cast and everything was finalized. The script was ready. It had to go to the shooting mode, but then the COVID started. And then basically for 6 months they couldn't do nothing because there was a complete lockdown. But during the COVID, he went ahead and started the shooting process. And actually completed that process, and then the whole product was ready, but still we had COVID. And but we decided that okay, we'll go ahead and start its screening from US, private screenings from US, not from India, because and we conceptualized the whole plan and how to go about it organically. So that was very good. Actually, we had the blessings of our martyrs. I have never been an architect of this, and basically, the architect of this whole thing were our martyrs and their families who have suffered immensely. So yes, we became the messenger of this. I call it as a yagya, it's a havan for us. I became a messenger. Everybody became a messenger. Vivek ji, Pallavi became a messenger. God sent messengers because justice had to come, awareness had to come, and that is basically how it went on. Because also we have seen in the years that Kashmiri Hindu problem was considered to be a law and order problem of Kashmiri Hindus. So that was the picture, and so it was hidden under the rug. And we devised a mechanism where, especially in the US screening, that became the foundation of its launch in India and global, wherein we had around 36 organizations belonging to Marathi Mandal, Gujarati Samaj, Sindhi Samaj, Sikhs of America, doctor physicians of US and global physicians organizations, every section, Bengali associations, Telugu associations, Kannada associations, they took the ownership. And that was part of the marketing, because we didn't want this Kashmiri Hindu to be part of just Kashmiri Hindu. So we have been working, GKPD also works with a lot of Indian organizations, Indian diaspora organizations. So that came as handy to launch this mega project once the product was ready. I will stop it here, and if you have any particular questions, because it is going to go for hours and hours, so we want to make best use of time. If you have in particular any questions, feel free.
So I remember, because Vivek ji has said that also a lot of times, that they collected over 700 testimonies, right? And the entire project, as you also said, it started with doing a documentary. Then how did that thought came into, okay, now we need to make it a full-fledged a movie? Because documentary, and going away from documentary, you had 700 testimonies, then you had to sort of get in all of those testimonies into a 3-hour movie. How did that entire picture took place?
I agree with him that was the right decision to go about it, because had it been documentary, it would have had a shelf life. It would not have created the buzz the way it created. And number second is that because we wanted to raise fundraising of $100,000 to create a documentary, but then the credit goes to Vivek. He said that this is such an important thing in our journey that he doesn't want to compromise with this. And I'll give you whole credit. And he said that I don't need your money. I will find everybody. I will use whatever resources I have. Theater release, not as a documentary or something else.
Right. Once the trailer, I think the trailer got launched in around February. Right. So February में there was a lot of people started questioning the motive of the movie itself. कि
Yes.
ऐसा movie ला रहे हैं, न पता नहीं क्या दिखाएंगे. It will create absolute ruckus. Harmony नहीं रहेगी. I'm sure आपको भी काफी इतना face करना पड़ा होगा. Definitely. So how did you take that?
See, we were anticipating this, and perhaps why we wanted to go for private screenings from US was because of that. क्योंकि जो ecosystem अभी इंडिया में है, and the pattern, especially on Kashmir, the battle of narratives that has been going on for last at least 25, 28, 30 years currently also. So there is a particular lobby who have been making effort to communalize this situation and just create a narrative that, hey, the Indian forces are creating excesses with the population in Kashmir, and this narrative has been going. We were aware that there will be challenges, and basically they will drift these strong human stories into Hindu-Muslim binary. To get rid of that, this is this media, this is propaganda, this is this thing. So we were aware of this. That's why actually when we were conceptualizing the marketing of this, we have been saying that we have to stay away from this Hindu-Muslim binary.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically human stories, the human rights, and basically about what has happened with this whole community. And that is why we were together in this. That's why we did around 25-30 impact screenings in US in various universities and colleges, and besides we did around 16 screenings in different cities in theaters. And what we saw that human stories are so strong that any individual, any human being of any color, any language, any ethnicity feels compelled to denounce what has happened. And that is exactly what happened. All the screenings, we have African Americans, we had Chinese, we had Hispanics, we had Muslims from Afghanistan, Yazidi communities, persecuted communities watching this, youth, and the lawmakers in US. And everyone was crying with us. The African American also personalized this our story of discrimination as Black Lives Matter. Yazidi communities, they were saying that we are Muslims, this happened with us also. Afghani Muslims, they said that no, this happened with us also. So basically it cut across religions, it cut across languages and ethnicities, and everybody was connected on these human stories. So, and this is basically in the US, it gave a huge foundation, and everything was jam-packed, all the screenings. And people became so fan that, we didn't know how to go about it. So that to that extent, we had the poster of the Kashmir Files displayed on the very prestigious and very expensive place of the world at Times Square. So that was the power. So when this was before the global release of this movie, and then eventually once this movie was globally released, and especially in India, exactly the same script we were anticipating happened. So there were this cabal who has been working in cahoots. When they became exposed, they had nothing to hide, and then they took recourse that it is a propaganda movie. It is to create a disharmony. It is to create unrest. And basically, they didn't take recourse to all those 15, 20 movies who have been made in Kashmir where our story was whitewashed. At that time, they were muted because it was shooting their narrative. And perhaps for the first time in the history of India, this narrative, this movie exposed this lobby. And that was the pain. They couldn't take it. So they went to this recourse of propaganda. They went to this, and it's a big lobby working right now as we see about the statements coming. So we were anticipating, we were prepared for that. From our side, we didn't want to nosedive into that direction, even though they tried their level best to do it. But Satyamev Jayate, the truth will prevail, will prevail always. So that's I wanted to make a response.
So Akshay, again, I just would like to point. For me, I see it very simply. I mean, Surinder ji has given you the background, but if you are with the truth, that's why these 700 story interviews which he has done in the background. I was part of the interviews. I organized some of the interviews in UK, and so it is our story. So whatever people say, it doesn't matter. And the thing is, in the movie, only 5% probably of what has actually happened to us has been shown. So if we just stick to the truth, the kind of side stories, just kind of with time, they just wash off. So although, I mean, in UK as well, there was a lot of because the other side of the story is very prominent, that because they've got, the lobby, the opposite lobby is quite strong. But if we just stick to the truth and tell her, this is the point of the movie is not to demonize other people, but just to say our story, and everyone has their right to say their story as it is, and that's what we try to do, and with good success.
Right. So, Shafalica ji, you'll have to elaborate this. A lot of people don't realize that what is shown in the movie is a very tiny bit. It's a very, very toned down bit of what actually happened. तो क्या है कि अभी ये सिर्फ जितना दिखाया है ना, people are so much rattled. In fact, the left is so much rattled that they don't realize the atrocities were humongous as compared to this. और उसके बाद वो बोलते हैं you have to show the second part also. I mean, what is the second part? What do you want to show of the terrorists who killed, who raped, who butchered people? उसका दूसरा side क्या हो सकता है? So can you elaborate? क्योंकि लोगों को ये समझ नहीं आता है.
So I mean, like I said, it's how much can you fit? It's obviously going to be just a 2.5-hour movie. Years and years and months of atrocities. How can you fit it? So kudos to Vivek ji. He with his film, I know he's a filmmaker. He has fitted a lot of things in 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Yeah, but we will need like at least 100 Kashmir Files. Even that will not be sufficient to kind of tell our story, isn't it? So people who are saying this didn't happen, I mean, I do tell them that this is only a minuscule part of what actually happened to us. And hoping that with the success of Kashmir Files, a lot of other filmmakers will come out and try and say our story, because there's different facets to it. It wasn't just the killings and people who were murdered then. It was what happened after that. The exodus, the pain, mental and physical health trauma. There's a lot of research papers on the physical and mental health of refugees, which is us. So that was another genocide, wasn't it? So that was another cultural genocide, and no one has even started to talk about it. People focus on the genocide, which is the most important bit. People were killed and they were martyred, innocents, who had no political or whatever affiliations. They were killed just because they were. But what happened to the people who died after? Thousands of people died after migration, because once you are thrown into hostile climates and hostile territories with no jobs, with no homes, what happens to a population? And I'm hoping someone, maybe Vivek ji himself or someone else, picks up that story and makes a movie on that, because that's a movie in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's atrocities are such that people even today face a lot of challenges. I mean, it's very difficult to भूल तो सकते ही नहीं हो आप. And then you see people questioning questioning the victim shame you today also. So it's a very bad situation to be.
So there is not just victim shaming. what happens is people don't give you a space to talk about it. Every time someone talks about it, then there's like 1,000 people jumping on you saying, oh, this didn't happen, ye to manganit kahani hai, because it is so tragic, it's so it's devastating. Some people genuinely think that in an independent secular country such a thing could not have happened because it's so traumatic. But some people then say you have just made it up. So even getting a space to talk about it is very difficult. It's taken years to talk about it. It's only now people, with Vivek ji also, people struggled, like Surinder ji said, people were crying. It's not easy, people have had their parents, somebody I know, her dad was hacked into pieces and thrown into the river Jhelum. How can you even start to talk about it? But talking is important. And I think that apart from making such a fantastic movie, the one good thing which Vivek Agnihotri and his team did, they got people talking. The real victims whose parents had died, whose brothers, sisters had been killed, they got them talking, because it's really important to talk about it now. Because if we don't talk about it now, what is the point? When we all die, the next generation will not know anything. But the tragedy is that even getting a space to talk about is very difficult, because people just jump on you and say, oh, this is all a lie. So
Yeah, and what we've seen recently is there is someone from Israel. It's a very harsh statement to call a movie like this vulgar, yeah, propaganda. Say somebody else calls a Schindler's List a propaganda or a vulgar movie. Surinder ji, can you elaborate on that statement?
Yeah, I will just give a little bit of context, which will help your audience basically. After the release of Kashmir Files, basically we had a lot of international campaigns going on. I know Vivek ji, Pallavi ji went to Germany, UK, toured in very prestigious Oxford University and other areas, interacted with the lawmakers in Scotland. The Parliament, the member Parliament said that he's going to raise it into the Scotland Parliament about the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus. So it was galvanizing. It was penetrating deep into the lawmakers, whether it is in US, whether it is in UK, whether it is in Germany. He went to Geneva and basically talked about it. So the ecosystem, basically that has been going, there has been people who are feeling uncomfortable about it, trying to make a counter narrative. And the recent statement of Nadav Lapid, the Israeli filmmaker, who was the chief jury in the government event where he talked nonsense and derogatory remarks about the Kashmir Files, you need to understand, see how he cut his territory of artistic angle, basically, that he spoke something that he was not supposed to speak. A jury of the filmmakers they go into the nitty-gritty of a movie about the artistic creativity, basically. Okay, he didn't like the music, he didn't like the sound, he didn't like the background, he didn't like it could have been done this thing. That is the freedom that definitely these people have. But he went into a territory where he's not supposed to speak all these things. Propaganda and vulgarity is not his domain. He was speaking out because we need to understand his profile, his affiliations, how in the background, because that helps us, a particular bias comes out. And we are not dumb. We understand all these things. A person who has been speaking about Palestine, who has been speaking that Kashmir is an occupied place, we're not surprised about his comments. But what exposes him is the type of comments he made, and he's standing on it. That is very, very dangerous. And that's where they expose. And we want more and more such people to come out and expose themselves. So that maybe after 2 years, maybe after 6 months, somebody else will speak. These things will continue because this is a territory which is very sensitive. There is a lot of international pressures on these people. It's a big industry where money is being exchanged. Who knows what is happening to make this statement to come out? Who are playing in the background? Who are the key players? So this needs to be seen through that spectrum. And is it a surprise for us? No, it's not. We should be prepared to have many such things coming in immediate future. But let us see, let them come out. Because as I said, Satyamev Jayate, they don't find that this movie is accurate. It is the true depiction of what happens. They cannot challenge on that. They will make fool of themselves because all of this is documented. Now you imagine they are not talking about Hyder. They are not making any comment about Mission Kashmir because why our story has been whitewashed, because they cannot do that because they are the part of the same ecosystem, and that's why it's not a surprise now. But the biggest love and affection, we will remain thankful to all Indians, to all Indian diaspora, to the all world citizens who believe in humanity, who believe in world as a civil society. They have supported this movie. They have given love and affection to this movie, and through that they have endorsed our pain and trauma that supersedes anything and everything. These players will come, will go. That has no relevance. But what is important is the blessings and love and affection from world citizens to this story, this traumatic story.
Yeah. So I'm sure Surinder ji is also planning to get in touch with the Israeli officials as well on the statement
Yes.
that this guy has made. So would you like to touch on that as well? So what is the talk going to be about?
So as soon as the statement came out, GKPD obviously on social media we kind of refuted because it doesn't make sense, the statement, but we know why he made it, because as we discussed earlier, there's a cabal in the background which carries on with their agenda. So our view is that somebody, probably gave him this statement and he read it, and maybe he supports it fully. But what is pretty obvious is that they don't understand what has happened here. So one of the key motives of GKPD is to educate the people. So we did invite the jury if they want to come and meet us one to one, and then sometimes it's people don't understand. They have very limited knowledge of what has happened. So we did, but we haven't heard back from them. We asked them to come and see us, which they haven't as yet. We have submitted a memorandum to the Israeli ambassador, who has been very magnanimous, and he has unequivocally condemned the statement. As you have seen in the press, he has come out with a couple of statements saying that he does not support this, and but we have officially written to him that we would like to meet him and discuss this further. We are waiting for an appointment. Hopefully, it should come soon. Because it's really important to engage with people, rather than people just coming up with statements and you just move on. Because that is not what GKPD is about. We are in this business to increase the awareness, to refute allegations as and when they come. Because it doesn't, it's terrible. You are kind of calling a movie vulgar. I mean, what is vulgar about it? I don't understand. Was Schindler's List vulgar? Was the Holocaust vulgar? It wasn't. Why not treat us in the same way? So yeah. So we will let you know if we do get to meet the ambassador.
Yeah. So yeah, before we can bring this session to the end, Shafali ji, just a final Shafalika ji, just a final word on how the entire massacre, now that people know about it, how has this information transpired now that a lot of people know about it? What do you think is in store for us in future?
Well, I'm not who I mean, I'm nobody to comment. We can only do our bit. We can only the movie has been a success. There's a docu series coming up. I'm aware Vivek Agnihotri and his team, because there's so much material, 700 interviews, and some of the interviews lasted hours. It's a lot of material, and I think the plan is to slowly for it to come out, the actual interviews, the face-to-face interviews. So that is the next step as far as increasing awareness is concerned. As far as GKPD, we will continue, what we are doing, to engage with the policymakers, the politicians. We have, I must admit, there has been limited success in engagement, but all we can do is try. and hopefully we will succeed. But the good thing is, the country is with us now. It's very heartening that the whole country, I mean, a lot of people, they said they were not aware before the movie came out. They were not aware that had happened, because in 1990 there was a media blackout. Apart from one or two local newspapers, nobody carried the story, so people didn't know. And how much can you tell them? It's difficult for one person to go around telling. When it comes in the form of a movie and then people talk about it, then the awareness actually increases. So yeah, so that's the plan going forward.
Thank you, Shafalica ji, for
Yes.
joining us today. It's really been a pleasure. I'll
Thank you, Akshay.
get you
Nice to
back.
talk to you. Thank you so much. It has been absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you.